You wanted to know what the Matrix is, Neo? Trinity? Try to relax. This will feel a little weird.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Juan on Juan podcast. I'm your host, Juan. On this episode, we talk to Luke Williamson. He's been on the show a few times. On this episode, we cover various topics. Obviously, one of my favorites, ancient civilizations. We talk about ancient technology. We cover some unusual megalithic sites around the world in Egypt, Turkey, France, and different sections of the world. And we also talk about some of the enigmas in life and what happens after death, etc., etc. Just a little bit of everything. Me and Luke sort of always freestyle it when we have our conversations and our calls that we set up. Don't forget to check out Luke's work on YouTube, Enigmas of the Ancient World, and on Instagram as well. But without further ado, this is Reptilian Overlords, Ancient Civilizations, and Humanity with Luke Williamson. Okay, and we are live. Welcome back to the show, Luke. You are right now the top contender. You've been on the show the most times than anybody else.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, dude, I love our conversations. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and I gotta take advantage while you're still in the States to talk to you because just love the conversations that we have.
I'm a wealth of wandering. I wouldn't say knowledge. I got a lot of questions.
Yeah, that's the thing with this sort of thing. Today we're going to be talking about unusual megalithic structures around the world. We'll start with Egypt and work our way around. We'll talk about Turkey and just weird things that it's. You were telling me that you don't think that some of them are Homo sapien. What did you mean by that, Luke?
Well, I mean we're all humans in the family tree, but I think there's pretty good evidence that Neanderthals were building complex stone circles 170,000 more years ago. I mean, when we were around too. I personally think that we learned about fire and toolwork, stonework from Neanderthals and possibly Cro-Magnons, and who knows, maybe Denisovans too. It's becoming obvious almost every year that this planet was inhabited by a lot of human races that are no longer here anymore, whether it's the little people, the Floresiensis, or I forget the name of the sort of dwarf race.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And then the Denisovans are interesting too, and although we haven't found a skull, so it's hard to say how large they would be. It seems to be like they might be kind of shack sized. Some indication that the Denisovans might have been naturally larger than the average human, and Neanderthals certainly were. But Neanderthals got a really bad rap for a long time because there was a definite agenda to paint them as ignorant, sort of knuckle dragging
apes,
beasts. Yeah, and they were actually very smart. They had a complex social relationship. There's some indication that the men and the children actually lived together, and the women traveled from tribe to tribe in order to, sort of not develop inbreeding and things like that. So, but it was a little different from how we do it. evidence of a particular type of spear tip, a technique which is really counterintuitive, and scientists believe that, archaeologists believe that that's something that needs to be taught. And they did that. We didn't do that. They had a much better technique for doing stuff like that. And so their brain capacity is actually larger than ours. And although, the frontal area of their brain was more compact because of the shape of their skull, it doesn't necessarily mean that they weren't smart. So yeah, I think it's quite possible that they're a lot stronger than we were. It's quite possible that a lot of the ancient megalithic construction, or a fair amount of it, could have been Neanderthal.
What are your thoughts on Terence McKenna's stoned ape theory?
Oh, I kind of like it. I mean, I read the book Fruit of the Gods when I was 19, I think, and it really kind of opened my mind to that idea of, apes in the wilderness, coming back and achieving a greater understanding of life in the world. I mean, it's kind of a seductive idea. And maybe he's right. I don't know.
Yeah, because again, it blows my mind. They throw around these figures, dude. Like, I was listening to a video of Graham. He was on JRE talking about how they found traces of humans or some sort of sapient being back up to 130,000 years versus the traditional 6,000 years or 12,000 years that they had
No,
proposed.
we are now, depending on depending on which area of the world you want to focus on. If you're going for the whole world, I think we're now getting pretty close. There's still like argument over it, but I think humans, sapiens, as we are now, current form, like 350, 400,000 years old.
Really?
Yeah, that's what it from what I was reading up to like 6 months ago. I haven't really seen, but sorry, every once in a while I see it come down to like 270, and then someone else says 150. But really, I think we're getting close to, we're gonna find more stuff, and then
What's
gonna
that?
be
What's
it's gonna
that
be half
number
a million
though?
years. Like,
What's that number though? The 6,000 that they go back 6,000 year old
six
advanced.
thousand 6,000 years is our recorded history. We've been recording, to whatever degree, our current history for about 6,000 years. It doesn't really go back much further than that. I mean, India does, but we don't really listen to them. And so 6 to 10,000 years maybe is all we have a vague memory of. But of course, we've been in this form, for at least 150,000 years, and maybe as much as 500,000 years, and maybe longer. I mean, I don't know. I don't think all the evidence is in, because we're still finding it, obviously. But it seems to suggest we're maybe up to 500,000 years old. And so I think that's one of the most basic and convincing arguments, in a way, for having a civilization we don't remember, is that, you're really expecting us to believe that humans lived in our current form, as we are now, without really developing or changing from, running around throwing sticks at animals and plucking figs off of trees. We didn't change for 395,000 years, and then all of a sudden, we're out there with agriculture and iron and steel and diamond tip tools and airplanes and cell phones, all in 6,000 years. So it just seems much more likely to me that this planet's actually not entirely stable, and things are going to happen here that are going to, cause mass extinction level events from time to time, maybe every 20, 50, 100,000 years. And then stuff's going to start over. And, humans, we're pretty hardy. We probably survived quite a few of these events. I mean, we're still here. And then we come back and we start all over again. I think it seems to me almost obvious.
Yeah, I've been thinking about that lately because I've been I just finished an episode on flat Earth, or not flat Earth, hollow Earth,
Right.
And I'm gonna actually on Monday night. I'm doing an episode on flat Earth with Mark Sargent, which is he's like pretty much the spokesperson of flat Earth, and he's gonna be on the show, and we're gonna talk flat. I don't believe everything. The whole reason of me starting this podcast was to learn about different ideas, and again, I don't believe that you will know everything if you don't take a look at
Oh.
everything. You know what I mean?
Oh
If
yeah.
you keep your mind on one thing only, how can you really say that you know the whole truth? I feel like you should look at all the possibilities and then decide for yourself.
There's a little bit of something interesting in almost every, wild theory. And for me, I mean, I look up into space and the heavens, and I got a pretty good camera. I can see the moon pretty well, and I'm just aware that pretty much everything out there is a globe. you know, so I'm not too big on the flat Earth theory, but the interesting thing that I think they do get into is they seem to always tie things into Antarctica, and why is it
Mm-hmm.
forbidden to go there, and what's underneath the ice. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that is actually a good question. What is going on with Antarctica? What is under the ice? Because we have a lot of these, the Orientis Phineas map, the Peri Reyes map. We
Mm-hmm.
have maps from, way before we had a map of the globe that show a continent down there that is forested. It's not covered in ice.
The ice is 2 miles thick, man.
So, what's going on, or what was going on underneath that continent? I mean, there could be all kinds of stuff there that would just be, really interesting to explore. So the fact that everything's, obviously it's very difficult to function and whatever down there with the weather, but I when I was a kid, it seemed like we were always doing scientific stuff in these places, and it was always being reported, and we were trying to make. Now it seems like it all information is just withheld. Like there's not much going on. We're not doing anything there. We haven't gone back to the moon, and we're just not really talking about any of this stuff.
Yeah, and that's what blows my mind about why we want to. Because I was thinking about how many things there are probably, for example, Egypt. 85% is still under the sand, lime rock, whatever. How many things are down there that we don't know about that could just potentially change everything that we've learned till today? You know what I mean?
Yep.
And it blows my mind that they want to go out to outer space and colonize other planets when we don't even understand our planet
Yeah.
100%.
I mean, it's the
You
same
know?
with the oceans. I think our technology for the oceans has to get better, but marine archaeology, I mean, it's really in its infancy. And I mean, there's over 250 sunken cities in the Mediterranean that we know of,
Yeah, that's the
not that we
thing.
don't know of. And then if you look at, if you say go back, a couple thousand, 5,000, 10, if you look at maps and look at how the water level has increased and decreased over periods of time, and then start thinking about, we were talking before you started recording about Karnak, not in Egypt, but the site in France with a C, Karnak. And
Mm-hmm.
that's a lot of megalithic stones across the landscape on the coast of France. And what a lot of people don't know is those stones continue out into the ocean like
It's
300 feet.
thousands of stones, right? Thousands
Yeah,
and thousands of stones.
yeah, I don't know the exact number, but there's an awful lot of them. But they actually continue out into the ocean underwater for 300 feet. So, at what point if you figure out at what point that was above water, you at least have an idea of the last moment that those could have been put up by somebody.
Yeah, again, we don't even understand what's going on our planet. Like you said, even at the bottom of the oceans.
And even lakes. I mean, we're finding stuff. Was it Minnesota where they found a stone circle with a bison head or a bison carved into and it's clearly like nobody could even ever deny that's not pareidolia. That was clearly like a buffalo or something had been carved into the side of the thing. That lake's been, that's been under water for 9 or 10,000 years.
They found what? They found a carving on the
They found a
side of.
stone circle, you know, uh,
Really?
and one of the blocks in the stone circle had a carving of a bison or a buffalo. I think that's what it was. I don't think it was a mammoth.
Do you know anything about the Georgia Guidestones? What's all that about?
I don't really know much about those, but yeah, I mean, it's certainly, who put those there with what agenda.
I've heard that they might be fake.
Okay, yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe somebody did it as a joke. I have no idea. Like, I haven't ever seen any, um, even really like a clear idea of who might have done it, except the Illuminati or something.
So, I was watching a video today. I don't know if it was your video of Karnak that had the tallest obelisk standing right now in
It's a
Egypt.
yeah, it's the tallest freestanding obelisk in Egypt.
Yeah.
It's obelisk.
Can we talk about the unfinished obelisk of Aswan in
Yeah,
Egypt?
yeah.
Because that thing is crazy looking and it's giant.
It is really crazy looking, and it's huge. And there's actually two of them there. They rarely tell you about the second one because the second one's
And
small.
two
It's
pieces, right?
Yeah, it's well, it's one really remaining piece, but it I think the rest of it is snapped off and has been used, quarried again. But there's another one there that you can actually go because they don't let you go underneath the big one, but you can go underneath the little one and see how the scoopy cut marks go underneath. They come down from the quarry wall, and then they curve on the quarry floor, and then they come up under the stone and then out under the lip. Like it's like one continuous groove or scoop, like on each. And it's like it's corkscrew. It's not entirely straight. And on the what you notice if you pay attention is on the other wall from on the side of the block, there are these long, narrow marks, like maybe 3 millimeters, wide and 3 or 4 feet long, where something very thin and hard has been pressed into the side of the obelisk really hard, and it's almost like a wedge for some kind of machine where they've like wedged it in so it stays in position while whatever is turned, the machine goes down through underneath and comes back out. It's really interesting. And when you get underneath that thing, there's only about a foot in there. And they're telling you this is guys, with stone balls, just
What?
pounding over and over again in a repetitive, movement with this stone ball. And there's just all kinds of things all over that. There's evidence of every kind of coring technique, but later, middle, early, and unknown at that site. So it's a really interesting site because you can compare all of them. And the Egyptologists have a really hard time coming up with a good explanation for that stuff. They pretty much just try to, they had beer and they had blankets, they were happy, and they just they used these stones, and they might have put some water and grit in there to increase the friction, and that's how they did it. And yet they have what they call test pits there, which are shafts that go down into the granite bedrock. It's like a lot of the surface granite's no good. It's been on the surface for too long, it fractures too easily. So you've got to get down, maybe 11, 13 meters into the granite to get a really large piece. Like the unfinished obelisk is massive. But even if you're not going that big, you still have to go down pretty deep to get one piece with no flaws.
It's 137 feet and it weighs 1,200 tons.
1,200 tons.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, it's like the Yangshan quarry. It's like the stones at Baalbek. How are they planning on moving this? Because that 1,200. Let me finish about test pit. Anyway, these test pits go down into the ground, sometimes that far, 11 meters or more, and yet you can see that these rotating scoop rings all the way down, like horizontal, all the way down this test
like
pit.
A big ass drill just going
it looks
down?
like if the drill, like, because each one of the rotate the grooves is like maybe 9 or 10 inches, something like that. And so it's big, whatever it is, and it's just like they rotate it and then they push down and they rotate it and they push. I don't know what it is. Anyway, that pit or some of those pits are so small that you if you stood in it, you would have that ball pressed to your chest, and then you'd be trying to turn with that thing. There'd be like, and then how do you even start? Like, because if you're in the hole, your feet are going to be where you need to have that ball. So are you hanging upside down in there? Or do they have like some kind of lathe, like, mobile lathe that they're using that's hooked up something where they're like, I don't know what they're using. Maybe they found a way to, just like a lot of people say, they soften the stone, doing this or doing that. And I don't know. I see a lot of very odd marks, and that's one of the places too where you see marks that look kind of like troweling. And I'm not a big fan of the geopolymer theory in Egypt, because a lot of the really old stuff is
What is that? Can you explain that?
well, like poured, like a lot of people believe that the pyramids, they're not stone blocks that were carved out of a limestone quarry. They were ground down and made into, like a cement, and then poured.
Really?
And then, but every pretty much every block in that pyramid is a different size.
Yeah, but either
So,
way, the vast size of just the operation alone.
it's ridiculous, because the molds would probably have had to be made out of wood, and I don't think you really have enough wood for that many molds. And then it's just there's fossils in a lot of the stone, which would suggest that it's actually real stone, not and there's tool marks on it. So if you've poured it in a mold, why would you then need to chisel it? There's a lot of, I'll get a lot of people angry, because there's a lot of people who are really super pro geopolymer. The only stuff I've really seen that to me looks like geopolymer is Pumapunku, but I'm probably wrong about that. There has been a recent study done on Pumapunku regarding geopolymers. That's they're saying no, it is geopolymer.
That's another weird place too.
Oh yeah, it's beyond weird.
So they say that this obelisk was never finished because they believe the builders may have been violently interrupted.
Well, there's they didn't finish it because it cracked, and then I think there's a lot of reasons. That the official story for why there's only the one that's that size is that they were going to build that for Hatshepsut, which I believe is I just think this is left over from the earlier time, because dynastic Egyptians weren't capable of moving something and erecting something. There's no clear path to the river from that. How are you going to get that out of there? I mean, it's outrageous. Anyway. So the story they tell you is that they were making that for Hatshepsut, and then it fractured, and Hatshepsut got upset with them and said, look, what are you guys doing? This is embarrassing. Get your shit together. Only make realistic sized obelisks from now on.
What's the size of the one in your video?
Hatshepsut's obelisk, it weighs about 400 tons, I think. And that is all one piece, but it's narrow. What is it, like a I don't know how tall it is offhand. I can't remember.
How do you spell it so I can look it up real quick?
Hatshepsut. Obelisk. Hatshepsut.
Yeah, Karnak. Yeah, that's a weird place, man.
It is. There's a lot of weird stuff there, and it's a very old site.
28 meters. So
28 meters. See, there's that 28 meters again. Like, it's a very important length. Like, 28 meters is the depth of the shaft underneath the step pyramid of Zoser. 28 meters is the depth of the shaft at Zoyat El Aryan.
91 feet.
It's the depth of the shaft at Abu Rawash. Like, 28 meters, like whatever that is in cubits, they did that over and over again with important objects and places.
Really? I'm seeing that extraction that you're talking about. They have an illustration of it here.
Yeah.
The extraction.
Yeah, I actually have a video on Aswan Quarry where, like, I take my video camera down underneath that thing, and Yusuf, like, talks about, like, what is this thing that does this? Because, it's funny. He knows all the traditional techniques. He demonstrates some of them, and it's hard to buy that stuff. They've had that same test piece there with a piece of granite. It's a poor quality piece of granite with these dolarite pounding stones. And that thing, like, doesn't look any different than it did 30 years ago. It's had tourists coming in and like banging on it with that stone every day. It looks the same as it did 30 years ago, but that's how they did it. You know,
Jesus, man.
crazy.
That's so crazy. Uh I heard an argument the other day. I forgot what I was watching, that if these people were so advanced, why didn't they use metals?
Mm.
But what's your take on that? Like, because some of these places, and there in Karnak, I think what it was, they lined some of this stuff with copper, was it? Because you
Yes.
get the patina on the copper.
They did it at a lot of the old sites. The like Abu Sir is one of the best places to see that. Some of the columns have fallen over, and the hieroglyphs are really deep in the stone, and they had significantly thick pieces of copper set into the hieroglyphs. And when those were looted, it had like centuries of oxidization, which is still in the stone. It's really cool to look at. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, the Egyptians did use bronze and what have you. But I think maybe you're asking if like the civilization that we don't remember, how come they didn't use? Maybe they did to a certain degree. There's other things that were extremely effective and hard, like obsidian. I think it just kind of really depends on what your needs were. Also, if you have a different understanding and capability with sound. This I've had engineers tell me that they think some of this stuff was done with water jets. The Egyptians had found a way to create like high pressure water that would could cut through stone quite
That would make
effectively.
sense.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of theories out there. There are definitely ways to do things without requiring metal to do it. Um, and I sometimes wonder, we find creatures, and I remember learning in school that, creatures are smaller today than they were a million years ago because there's a lot less oxygen in the air. I remember, like these creatures and what have you could grow to a much greater size or something. I don't know if that's true, but I just saw something the other day about somebody who found fossilized armadillos. And I saw the pictures of these things, and they're like the size of baby elephants. I mean, they're massive, and it's just like things used to be bigger. And so, if the rules were different in terms of the gas, however our air and oxygen and whatever we live in here, whatever the ratios are between them, if that does something, I don't know. I'm not enough of a scientist to figure
You're
that
trying
stuff
to
out.
get at that because the conditions were different. They
Yeah,
could do different things.
maybe they could do different things. Maybe though they just had. Maybe also, the Earth is. If you look at what the Indians and the ancient Egyptians and a lot of the old cultures are saying, there's always like these 5 ages, and it's that the world goes through and repeats these 5 ages like over and over again, and some of those ages are much better for energy and understanding and clarity than others. That's just, and it's like this cyclical thing, and maybe there's some truth to it. I mean, we tend to think of what I was always taught in school was that uh, when the ancestors came up with explanations like this, it was because they didn't know, so they just made it up. And the more I look at this stuff, I'm like, that sounds like an explanation you came up with because you didn't know, so you made it up.
Yeah, but there's
And
always some truth to it. Just like every legend and every myth
yeah,
and everything, there's always a little bit of truth to it. And like you said, if they didn't understand it, okay, maybe they might have exaggerated because they didn't know what it was. But there
I
was
think,
still something they didn't understand.
yeah, I think also, there are ways of explaining things that other people wouldn't understand in, sort of allegorical form. I think Laird Scranton is a really good author for this. He's written a couple of really interesting books. The Science of the Dogon.
Oh,
Uh,
dude, those people are crazy.
yeah, and when he goes through, and I mean, they use a hieroglyphic writing system, and it hasn't, because they never developed a different writing system. It hasn't changed. And a lot of the hieroglyphs are similar to Egyptian hieroglyphs. And through the work of the two French anthropologists who spent over 20 years with the tribe and produced, some books
Yeah,
and
but did you
information
see?
about it.
Do you know the story behind those
I do.
people? I mean,
I do. But
it's
but Scranton hypothesizes that the science of creation and matter is all explained within their histories in the hieroglyphs. If we go deeper, if we don't take the surface explanation and we go deeper into the stories, we can see, and it's really fascinating, and it makes me wonder if a lot of these books, like the Book of the Duat and the Book of the Gates, whether some of this isn't, knowledge concealed within, surface level writings. I could see the Egyptians inventing that, quite honestly.
what are you trying to get at, Luke? Like a Akashic Records type thing, like
Well, I mean, it's we've done this in the Western culture. We did it for centuries. There were teachings that were always forbidden, whether it's by the church or by the government, and yet,
like magic.
yeah, magic, alchemy, whatever it would be.
Yes.
Things that were considered to only be possible maybe with magic, that now with technology, we can do, and some we can't.
Well,
But in order to you couldn't teach it, you couldn't talk about it. So how do you study it? Well, you have to hide that knowledge in plain sight so that other initiates go, oh yeah, this is what he's really, and then they can share it however that works out. So were the Egyptians doing that with some of their writings? I can tell you for sure that there isn't even a complete hieroglyphic dictionary. There's still stuff on the temple walls that isn't in any dictionary. So, to even pretend that we have a clear idea. I mean, they use no punctuation, and a lot of their language is based on combination of symbols and which one comes where and which way it's facing. And is this these three together, or is it these three together and the next two together? Are those all together, or is it just one and four? Or and every meaning is different. And so, literally, they come up with their happy medium of what they think something is saying. But there is literally limitless other interpretations of what's being written on the walls.
Sounds like the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
Just like that's the thing, you don't really know, and then how do you know if somebody's not translating it the wrong way?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That's the problem with all the ancient literature, is that when you want to study it, you have to study it in your own language, which nowadays is English or German or French or something.
But the original translation was Greek or something, and then they had to translate.
It was a Greek writing of something else, and it's
Yeah.
like every time something is lost or misconstrued or misunderstood, and then that's developed on, and it's the further away you get from the original, it's like bad Xerox copies, which people can't read stuff, so they start filling it in.
So back to the Dogon, right?
Yeah.
Because that tribe,
yeah,
is very, very fascinating. That's why that just reinforces the Anunnaki theory. I know you don't like that theory, but
I just don't like Sitchin.
Luke, who the fuck were the Nomos that gave them this knowledge? And then you're talking about these forbidden practices, right? We see this. We see this in the Book of Enoch. We see this in the Book of Genesis. The Nephilim, the fallen angels that were teaching man how to, what they call it, the science of herbs, the science of roots, black magic, necromancy, all this stuff. And it's true what you said, because what we do now, a lot of the things that we do now, what me and you are doing right now, we're talking through something. It's magic. If we were to do this shit back in the 14th century or something like that, we'd be burned at the stake because we're witches or some during the Dark Ages or something, because it's magic. It is magic what we're doing. And what are your thoughts on the Tibetan monks that move stones with the sound, the acoustic levitation?
Honestly, I think sound is the key to just about everything. I think everything originates from sound, and everything will go back to sound. Everything is just vibration. And yeah, I think, I think the possibilities are limitless. And I mean, just like I remember a couple years ago, I was seeing college students who did this. Decided to see if they could put out fire with sound, and they figured out they thought it was going to be high frequencies, turned out to be bass frequencies. But these
Mm-hmm.
guys were able to put out grease fires in a kitchen with like 5 seconds of a really low frequency sound
Wow.
fire out. And that's just one application. Cymatics is really interesting. There's so much, because we talked about this the other time, how we perceive a really small
Oh yeah.
range of everything that's out there, visually and orally. And yeah, I think absolutely is that you're talking about the story of the monks that would sit like in a semicircle, and they would chant like one note or
Yeah.
something to
Yeah.
that effect, or a combination of notes,
Yeah.
and in the direction of a block, and then they would be able to move that block.
Yes.
I mean,
That.
it sounds completely crazy, but I'm at the point where I wouldn't doubt that it's possible.
So,
We
correct
started
me if
to
I'm.
figure out how to be able to move things with sound. They're just really small at the moment, but we'll figure
Yeah.
it out.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got quantum. You got quantum physics doing magic. You have quantum entanglement, making stuff like that
Yeah.
happen. Um, but which is the chamber in the Pyramid of Giza? Where is it? The Queen's chamber, where that box is there?
Yeah. Well, there's the box is in the king's chamber, the
The King's
so-called king's
chamber.
chamber. The queen's
Yes.
chamber, though, has it has a shape in it in the back corner, which is like an amplifier shape, like the way it works. It's
Luke, what do you what? Because I know that when you lay in there, how is it when you lay in there? How does that feel? Because I know you feel like the frequency. Like
tell you
what?
something.
What
It's
is that,
I mean,
man?
it's
Like,
cool. It's cool just to lie in there. And I did it when I was a kid, and then I did it again in 2015. And then I've done it a couple times recently. I've lain in a lot of boxes, but we had the private permission for that, so we were in there by ourselves with one guy, making sure we weren't doing anything crazy. And we were in there for 2 hours, and I lay in that box, and Yusuf knows what the frequency is. He leaned into that box down by my feet, and he hummed a low frequency, and that entire box just vibrated around me like madness. Like I almost couldn't stand it. It was so intense, and he wasn't doing much, but like I started to get kind of uncomfortable after less than a minute of being in that box with that vibration.
I
So
I
I don't,
didn't. That's the thing, man. Like, I did an episode with this guy from Skinwalker Ranch, Ryan Burns,
mm,
and he started talking this stuff that blew my mind. Have you ever heard of the haplogroup X, that gene anomaly that people have, that it traces back to like Europe and like all these crazy ancient places
I've
that
heard
it,
of it. I don't know much about it.
so I'm
I
researching it
know
right now.
there's a lot of that RX negative blood group,
Yeah,
blood of the
so
gods thing going around too.
I'm currently researching it, but it's like, what if these people, for example, like the Mayans, that they just disappeared out of nowhere? What if they were able to achieve this state of consciousness because of their genetic makeup and just leave this realm? Or like even the Egyptians, like laying in that box, mind you, let's say like when the pyramids were brand new, brand spanking new, brand new pyramid smell, that they were working, doing whatever it was that they had them doing for whatever reason. And let's say that when they laid in that box, they were able to shoot up that shaft and go into the stars or something, dude. Like, You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
what?
I mean, you could imagine that it might be something like, a Star Trek teleporter thing where you lay in the box and all your molecules just like
Dude,
vibrate and then like shoot up the shaft and reassemble wherever.
that's
But
so
maybe only at
mindful.
certain times of the year. I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, we were talking about what, Mercury, what you were saying, or Venus or something like that before the episode started.
mm. I mean, I've definitely felt my molecules, disassemble and then come back together. So, maybe it's possible.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like I don't think we'll ever know, dude, unless we eventually invent some sort of time machine to go back in time and see these people at work, dude. How fascinating that would be because that just it's one of those things that
Just about
just
everybody I know who's into this stuff has had that conversation with me at some point, and even Yusuf. And we were standing out somewhere, and I was like, God damn it, I'm gonna build a fucking time machine. And he stopped and he looked around and he goes, brother, you better fucking call me. Figure
yeah.
that shit out. Like, don't
It's,
go and not take me.
I had a friend of mine who was like, "Oh, what about the observer effect?" And I was like, "Bro, shut up, man.
Who
Just
knows how that would work? You could bring out all the greatest theorists in the world to tell you why it would work or not work, and nobody knows. Nobody knows.
yeah, you get a Nobel Peace Prize if you figure that shit out.
Oh, that's what I need.
You know
Mm.
what I mean?"
I need one
Because
of those so I can sell it in 5 years for healthcare.
yeah,
For
dude.
my kidney transplant.
Jesus, man.
I wanted someone who just won like a Nobel Peace Prize. Like he couldn't. He ended up selling it for like $900,000 in his house so he could treat his cancer or something.
Really? That's
Welcome to
crazy.
America.
Yeah, yeah. What was I talking to about that? About oh yeah, I think I was talking about the coronavirus
Mm.
and all this craziness happening right now in the
All
world.
this, all these 5G theories are coming out now. It's 5G. And I was like, what
Yeah,
about the boats? And then they're like, dude, they've got 5G satellite beamed at that thing all the time.
at the what do you mean the boats? The people that they're keeping offshore?
Yeah, on the cruise ships. Because I was like,
Yeah.
how, if it's 5G, how are the cruise ship people getting it? Like, I can't even check my fucking email, you know? Like, I'm on the
Well,
Nile. I can't even check my email. How those
that's
guys
the
got it?
thing.
And then they're like, no, we've got, and they show the ad for the cruise ship, and they're like, our new 5G system, and it has like pictures of the satellite just enveloping like the ship in this purple
Well,
fucking cone of death.
before
It's
we got
hilarious.
on the show, I have a friend of mine who works on cell towers, right?
Right.
And he installs 5G, and so
The birds
um
dying or the bees dying? What
the
does he
what?
say? Are the birds dropping dead around the bees dying around it? Like,
Well,
what's he
well,
say?
here's the thing. So check it out. So we're gonna be doing an episode on another podcast, a friend of ours on Sundays, right? So he was like, but I told him, I said, dude, no conspiracies, right? The guy doesn't want conspiracies because we're just like we every time we come on, we're always talking about conspiracies, and so he texts me and he goes, okay, so I have to debunk the 5G conspiracy, and I go, what do you mean? He goes, 5G is safe, and these are text messages. I can go more in depth on Sunday if you want. He's like, you're getting more harm from UV rays than you would 5G. Gamma rays or X rays are even more harmful than 5G. And I put LOL, he doesn't want conspiracy. He goes, oh, for sure. Well, I'll just tell you because I finished the podcast y'all did. 5G isn't harmful in any way. I got cooked. He's telling me this. He's like, 5G is not harmful, but I got cooked by a 4G antenna I was standing 2 feet away from because I'm a dumbass. 5G is a non-ionizing wave frequency, can't penetrate the skin. 4G can go through your skin and cook you from the inside out, yet still non-ionizing. I replied back, I said, bro, dot, dot, dot. Fuck 5G. Fuck all the G's. That shit is bad for you. I literally replied that. He goes, LMAO, but you like that service though. He's like, the sun is worse
Don't
for
we
you.
all?
And I go, fuck it all. And then he's going off, and I'm like, dude, it can't be good for you, dude. Uh, um,
I'm interested in what, because I don't know, but I'm interested in what he would cite as proof of that, because I watched the congressional uh, hearing on 5G when they asked like everybody. They were like six dudes from who were responsible for 5G, like across the board, and the congressman was asking him like, so what health testing and what safety testing have you done? Have any studies been done on the potential effects on humans?
We get faster
by
download
this?
speeds.
And they were like, no. Like none of them were aware of any study that had been done at any time in the history of 5G on whether it's safe. So like maybe it is safe, but I don't know how I know.
No, that's the thing, Luke. That's the problem. That's the problem, Luke. That there's all this stuff going on around us that we can't confirm. Like,
Well,
okay, you said everything around. You said this is what you said at the beginning of the episode, that you believe everything is a globe. But guess what, Luke? You can't confirm that because you've never been to space.
I haven't been to space.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
this is something that we're taught from the very beginning. We're indoctrinated with it, and we don't know anything else. That's just like, we don't know anything else, so we can't. When somebody asks, I know one thing for sure, and I've said this before, that I don't know shit. That's what I know.
Well, like we used to talk about, this was they used to call it the information age. When all this stuff started happening. And where we are now is we're in the disinformation age. And the reason that happened is because governments realized that they could no longer control the release of information. It just travels too fast with social media.
Got out of their hands.
For years, they were actually caught with their pants down, like across the board, and shit happened. And then, of course, we've had all the security pushback. But as they tried and failed to gain control of the internet, they were kind of forced to go with a different tactic, which is just flood the internet with as much information as possible, most of which is garbage, but which contains nuggets of truth.
Yeah,
that's the important part, because you got to have enough truth to pull people in,
but now
and then you can destroy them with all the bullshit that's attached around that truth.
But now it's conspiracy.
Yeah. And now, nothing about that is true, because other things that they've inserted in there, and it's brilliant. That's what they've been doing with UFOs and whatever for a long time, and now they're doing it just with all information. And I don't know whether any of those UFO crashes are legit. I have no idea, but there was a very definite development of the way to deal with that was to aggressively ridicule whoever even talked about it. So you can't even have a discussion. And those are the issues that I start paying attention to, are what are the things that you talk about today, when as soon as you start talking about them, like, you get screamed down, like, even if you're just asking questions, and that's one of them. And vaccines is another one. Like, there's an awful lot of bad shit that's in, like, I think vaccines are a good idea. I just don't know if the way we've actually implemented them is safe and healthy. And I remember being a kid and having to get some vaccines. But like, now, how many do you have, like, in the first 5 years of life? It's unbelievable. Like,
dude, my son just turned 2. My son just turned 2. I took him to the doctor yesterday, right? You're supposed to get your flu vaccine once a year. I haven't had my flu vaccine and I don't know how many years, right? And they wanted to give it to him there. And I don't okay, they say it's what it is, but I don't know what's in those syringes, right? So they're like, "Oh, hey, he doesn't have any vaccines today, but we can give him the flu shot." And I looked at my fiance and the doctor was there, and I nodded my head no. And she was like, "No, we're going to go ahead and not." And I was like, I looked at her, and when the doctor left, I was like, "I haven't gotten my flu shot in years. I rarely get sick. And I don't know what they're putting into him, because why every year, and then the conspiracy now is that they're injecting nanotechnology into people and all this weird AI driven technology.
I don't know about any of that, but I do know, like, I mean, if you've seen that interview with what was his name? He's a professor. His last name begins with S. He's like Sorkin. What is his name? He's like the father of vaccines. And it was just like a court case where they were asking him, like, is this is there like fetus remains from, like, is there stuff from monkeys that had this disease that can be transferred to humans, but it's in this virus? Yes. Are there fetal remains, like, in this that are being, yes. It's just like the amount of shit in there that I'm like,
What?
that is not necessary. And this is the guy who's like the father of vaccines talking about it.
What'd you say
I'll
that
send
had
I'll
what
send
in
you
there?
I'll send you the link later
Like
and you can
weird shit in the
there's
vaccines?
yeah. I mean, in addition to the, the usual shit, the mercury and, whatever else, there's some other stuff. There's a lot of animal viruses, obviously, because they're trying to protect us against something, but the way they do it sometimes apparently is, with animal viruses that we don't have that we could, you know, apparently causes problems. But I'm not an expert. I don't really want to get into it because I'm going to start waffling because I don't have the details in front of me. But
Yeah. No, but I
I've
believe you, dude.
I've
Because
seen enough to have questions. Let's just put it that way.
yeah, because I'm in Florida, right? And the other day I went camping and I was hearing weird noises while I was camping, right? And so just for the fuck of it, while I was in my tent, because I was reading a book, and I think the book was making me paranoid because I kept hearing these noises. But I'm in Florida, so anything is possible in Florida, right?
Yeah, no
Because
shit.
again, when you have these areas of land that are acres and acres of just swamp
Could
and acres
be
of forest,
Bigfoot on meth with a shotgun,
everything you
or
don't know.
could be
So
anything.
yeah, so I, for the fuck of it, while I was there, the little bit of signal that I had, because that's another thing. When you're out in the country, dude, the air is different. You sleep differently. The air is different because they're not fucking pumping the air of all this shit. So the little signal that I had, I Googled for the hell of it. It was like fucking 3 in the morning, and I couldn't sleep because I was freaked out. And I Googled, is there monkeys in Florida? And there's fucking monkeys in Florida, dude. In Central Florida, there's monkeys. But to relate to the subject that you were just talking about, these monkeys, they're called Rhesus macaques. They're
Yeah.
like to this. I don't know where they're indigenous. They're invasive here, but I don't know where they're from. These monkeys, 20% of the population has a type of herpes that's very harmful and super contagious to
Yeah.
people. So they're attacking. So it's a problem here because they're attacking people who go see them in Central Florida,
Right.
and they're biting them, they're scratching them, the people, and about 20% of those people that get infected with this strain of herpes die.
Oof.
And
That's no
so
way to
it's
go.
yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Killed
It's
by the monkey herb. Wow. Every time I think, I've been through some shit, then like I'm like, yeah, actually, I haven't been through shit.
yeah, then you hear that. It's like,
Somebody out there's got some war stories.
oh yeah. So yeah, so it blew my mind that we had monkeys, and then it blew my mind that they're like these herpes infested monkeys that kill you by scratching you and you can get infected by them. Uh, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of, it's like,
Yeah.
but with the
Those are
pharmaceutical,
the standard like test monkeys, I think, the rhesus monkey. That's what
I
we
don't
use in
know.
labs.
I don't know. So some guy released them back in, I don't know when, like the 80s or something like that, and he had them for his private. So he released them on his private island to
Oh,
try and get them
Jesus.
to breed and be like an exotic getaway or whatever. But then he didn't realize that the monkeys could swim. So he brought six of them, released them. The fucking monkeys swam out of the island and went into Florida,
That's
and then
hilarious.
he brought six more, and those six left, and they swam away.
That's so
so,
funny.
so then they started repopulating and just populating. And now it's a problem here
Wow.
in Central Florida. And the government's like, people are freaking out because it's
Just
like,
wow.
yeah, it's crazy. But yeah, I've heard stories of like, if you would go get tested for HIV, they would ask you, are you homosexual? Like
Right.
before? And it's like, if you answered yes, they would say that you had it. Or then if you answer no, then they would probably leave you alone. You know what I mean? Type of stuff. Because again, it's all about money. The farm they've caught so many pharmaceutical companies paying
Wow.
people and doctors to refer to them
Oh
to,
yeah.
they were getting kickbacks all the time. They find it
Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
And it's like the shit that they're giving you is so much. Well, that's when we get into psychedelics. The shit that they're giving you is so much worse than what it's treating, and then the residual effects that it has, the side effects are so much worse than what you know what I mean, like uh, antidepressants and all that stuff, highly addictive.
Oh, they're
Yeah,
horrible. They're
Yes,
just horrible.
my dad's in the hospital right now because he had a flare up for his MS, and they were giving him Ambien. Ambien fucks people up, dude.
Yeah, yeah, it does.
Right now they're pumping him. I don't know full of what. He's like, man, I can't. He's like, my blood sugar's through the roof. I can't sleep. Uh, I feel weird, and it's to treat his quote unquote MS. You know,
Wow.
and they're just pumping him full of something. It's a steroid. It's to treat the thing, but then it's fucking your liver up, fucking your
No,
kidneys up.
I
Messing
watched.
up.
Yeah, I watched my dad go through all the chemo, and it wasn't the cancer that killed him. I mean, it would have eventually, but it was all the shit they put in his body to try to kill cancer that killed him. And I watched my mom go through her post-cancer treatment and all of the horrible side effects she gets from the medication. They'll bitch about it, but they'll switch you off to something else, which does something else equally fucking horrible. It's
So
like,
both your parents had cancer?
yeah. And my
Wow.
aunt, both my aunts, and
So
my
here's the
cousin,
thing, Luke. Like, I've heard of people who,
my grandmother, both my
uh,
grandmothers.
I heard of people who don't take treatment survive, and then the people who take treatment have a 50-50 chance.
I was in Holland recently. I was talking to a friend of mine who actually was a friend of my dad's, came to my dad's funeral in Holland, and I hadn't seen her since. It was really nice to see her, and her father had died since I'd seen her of cancer, and
Wow.
so I know what it's like. So commiserated for a minute, and then she said, I've been thinking about it, and I said, and if you get cancer, you're not going to take the medicine. And she goes, yes.
Wow. And
And
that's what
I
you've
knew
come
what
up
she
with
was going
too?
to say before she said it. And because I've had exactly the same thoughts. I've seen it and I'm like, I'll try some alternative shit and then I'll go if it's my time to go. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, man. I'm not doing that shit.
That's,
I'm not hooking myself up to a pod and pumping poison into me that turns everything I taste into ash and saps my fucking enjoyment of any fucking moment.
yeah, because it just destroys people. And that's the thing. And I've talked about this before. Mindset is such a crazy thing. And I feel that before people knew that they had something, if they really truly do have something, I feel they go quicker when they know about it versus when they didn't know about it.
My dad fought really hard. They gave him 2 weeks and he lasted 2 years. He wasn't interested in giving up. But he was a big guy. My dad was 6'2", but he was really broad. I mean, I once saw him pick up an upright piano. He's a really strong man. And when he died, he was under 50 kilos, you know.
Wow.
I mean
That's
that
100
that
pounds?
yeah, it was kilos, 2.2 pounds, something like that. So he was right around 100 pounds. It
Wow.
was just
Yeah.
I was able to carry him from the bathroom and put him in bed.
That's fucking wild, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's horrible. I can't imagine. I mean, my dad's going through this now, and the reason he went is because he couldn't see out of his fucking right eye.
Mm.
And so, and the thing, he went to optometrist or whatever the hell they're called, and it wasn't an eye issue. It's like, no, dude,
Right.
it's your brain. It's your
Fuck.
body attacking itself, and it affects, the brain. That's the thing. We don't know so many things about the world or about our bodies and the brain. This big slab of meat that we don't even know how it works. When we operate people open brain surgery, we literally have them doing stuff to make sure that we don't fuck their brain up.
Well,
Like,
I think a lot of stuff is actually a lot of these things come from like chronic inflammation that we're not even really aware of. And I think that's one of the reasons that things like ayahuasca really work very well for people is they really just clear your system of all these kind of toxins and blockages and inflammations. And I think that is a significant cause of why people do really well with stuff that has been resistant to traditional med. I know somebody who had something called candida, and they'd done everything they could to get rid of that.
the hell is that?
It's some kind of sugar-related fungus that lives in your body and does unpleasant things.
Really?
I haven't had it, so I don't know a lot about it. But she took ayahuasca 3 times, and she didn't have candida anymore. But her doctors couldn't get rid of it. I mean, it's not. I'm
What?
not pushing anything as a cure for anything. There's a lot of people who go for last minute shot of curing something, and yeah, I mean, one of the shamans that I drank with, 11 times, he just, his kidneys eventually failed him, and he died last year. May he rest in peace. I mean, it's not. It's a lot of people promote it as like a healing cure-all, which is really not. But it can do a lot for you in other ways, and it really cleans your system out.
Man, this stuff is fucked up. It's like a yeast infection.
Yeah, it's some kind of yeast infection that's an internal thing. Apparently, it can be really hard to get rid of.
Wow, that's
I think it
gnarly
has to do with
looking.
sugar as well. It's like and we're so sugar addicted. That's probably the number one addiction in America. Probably is
Well, they've
sugar.
compared it to cocaine. They've compared, processed sugar to cocaine,
Mm.
and it. You're right. And I don't know. I've been eating like shit this past week, and I try to drink as much water as I can, but
Yeah, that's important.
I had my son's birthday. I ate cake, soda, and I usually don't
Right.
do that much, and I don't eat. I've cut out fast food because that stuff just drains you.
Yeah, I haven't
You
eaten
know,
fast food since 2013.
so it's that. Not only that, but it's a money pit, dude. I
Yeah.
was one time in my life where I was spending like $300 a week in food. You know what I mean? A week,
Yeah.
and like just eating out all the time. I was like, man, I can't keep doing this. So, I slowly cut it out, started cooking at home and stuff. But it's just sometimes you're just so tired
Oh yeah.
and
And
you just
like,
don't want to do
and
anything.
sometimes I cook for myself all the time. Sometimes I'm just like, I don't want to cook. I don't want to cook. I just don't want to cook. And other times I'm really into it. So it just depends. But yeah. No,
Yeah,
I don't really do that, and I'm actually on day 59 of no carbs, no sugar. So
really. I
yeah,
can't. I couldn't do the low carb diet, dude. It's just I feel like I have zero energy.
it's because you're not eating enough fat.
Fat.
If you do like a no carb or super low carb diet, you need to eat fat. So like foods that have a high fat, like you cook with butter, like eat a lot of cheese, eat bacon, eat meats that have like a higher fat content. Because what happens is your body burns carbs for fuel, and then when there's no carbs to burn for fuel, it has to burn fat. So you're just burning your fat, and so you feed yourself the fat to keep burning it, so it doesn't start burning the carbs.
Yeah,
It's the premise of the keto thing. But you don't even have to go super hard keto. But if you have no energy, like
I've heard
eat more
keto is
fat.
bad for you though too.
Well, is it?
I mean,
I don't know. I know vegetarians who drop dead, and we
yeah,
all
and I
die. It's
vegans,
just
dude. Vegans look like heroin addicts. They look sickly.
I would like to not eat anything that was alive. Like that would just be amazing. And so I don't know how that works. But yeah, everything is alive, and I think plants are actually conscious too. I don't,
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
the thing.
I think we should
So
eat people. The plants and animals are fine. I'd like to promote cannibalism. Let's get rid of some of these people.
yeah, so I think it was hold on, let me. My fiance sent me this thing, dude. The Florida man at work. Let me read it to you. Uh, it was a headline. Let me see here. It says, "This is in Orlando. Another horse stolen, slaughtered for meat in Florida."
Look. Um, I spent a lot of time in Greece, which is where my dad lived, and his house there's now my house, so I go there, and um, it's a small island, the island of Rhodes, where the Colossus used to be once upon a time, and there's a pretty good donkey trade on the island because they take people on donkey rides in the town of Lindos in particular. There's a Acropolis on the top of the hill, and it's really hot in the summer, so that tourists will pay, some euros to sit on the back of the donkey and get carried. Those poor donkeys. They just instituted a weight rule recently, but they don't pay attention to that. But anyway, so the donkeys carry people up and down, and then in the winter, there are a few donkey enclosures, but some of the guys take their donkeys and just take them to a good tree in a nice field and just tie it with a really long rope so it can be under the tree and you got some water, and then it can just sort of have this sort of semi-free grazing. And this guy did it actually, and this wasn't that long ago. It was probably 2013, 14. It's right when the economic situation was really bad in Greece. And I mean, it's still not great, but anyway, like one day there was just no television. Like there's no warning, but like the national TV, all that stuff is just gone. Didn't have any money for it. Anyway, this guy parked his donkey in Lindos at the bottom of a hill, tied it to a tree, and came back to check on it. A couple days later, it was gone. They found the head and a foreleg in a field a couple miles. I mean, I just went into somebody's stew pot. People were hungry.
Wow.
That's the way some people cannot feed themselves. That's the way things are at the moment.
Yeah.
And those donkeys, like, I mean, I had to be in a I don't know how hungry I'd have to be. Those aren't appetizing looking. Like I haven't looked at one of those donkeys and go, ooh.
But they just eat grass though, right? It's like it'd be like a cow, no?
I think it'd probably be bit gamey. Have you ever eaten horse?
I've never ate horse, no.
I ate horse. I think the French eat horse. So when I was in France a long time ago, I tried it. It's absolutely disgusting.
Really?
It tastes like beef for half a second, and then it takes like this gamey left turn that I find like revolting. But I don't really like gamey stuff. But it's like the difference between like if beef is Coca-Cola. This is like Coca-Cola with a lot of aspartame. You know what I mean? It's got like that. Yeah. Like it tastes like Coca-Cola at first, and then you're like, oh.
Yeah, I hate that taste.
Yeah, that's what horse was like to me. It was like, oh, it kind of tastes like beef. Oh.
No, that's.
But I imagine it would sort of taste something like that. Goat tastes pretty good
though. Goat is good. Rabbit is good.
Well, rabbit is like the best chicken I ever ate.
Boar is good. Frog legs is good too. It tastes like chicken.
I did not enjoy frog legs, but like I like the escargot, but probably because it's just the garlic butter. Because what taste do those things really have?
Gator tastes good too.
Yeah, I went to New Orleans. I had alligator and I had alligator sausage. The alligator sausage was not good, but the actual alligator and snake was actually really good.
Snake?
I thought. Yeah. What? Yeah. I thought snake was really good. I would eat snake again.
I've never had snake before, but can we talk about...
Yes, sorry.
That's fine. Can we talk about Turkey?
Yeah.
Your experience there, and then obviously the thing I sent you the other day.
You wanted to talk about Darren Kuyu, right?
Darren Kuyu, and then any other sites that you feel are interesting over there.
Turkey has a million really interesting sites, and unfortunately, it's not a good place to go to at the moment. But it has.
Can you name some so I can Google them?
Name some what?
Name some of the sites so I can Google them.
Oh yeah, well of course Göbekli Tepe is the big one.
Oh really? Yeah, I forgot that's over there. Yeah.
There's actually a sister site very close to it called Karahan Tepe, which is like 2% excavated, like or not even. I think Göbekli Tepe is only like 5 or 10% excavated, and it's actually a bit disappointing because they built this horrible enclosure over it. They've piled stuff up around a lot of the stone, like a lot of the really iconic figures that you see on those stones, like the warthog or whatever it is underneath, like the turkey vultures. You can't even see it. Like all of that stuff's like obscured. They've piled stuff up against it. Like I don't know what they're doing, but I mean I understand they don't want people walking through it, but they could like. I think somebody who's running that site needs to go to Malta and like walk through, because that's restricted what you can walk through, but you can still enjoy the experience. What they've decided to do at Göbekli Tepe is like build a replica in the museum so you could walk around. Like I don't want to walk around a fucking replica in a museum. Like I didn't fly to Turkey to walk around a replica of a site that's 10 miles away that's like one of the most interesting sites in the world. Yeah, that might satisfy somebody, but like I want to walk. I want to touch the stone. So it was frustrating, and also because they detained me. But there's a lot of sites there that are really incredible. Darren Kuyu's one of them. But one of the things I realized when I was there is there are actually a lot of sites, a lot of really old T-pillar sites.
Yeah, you got
That
Ephesus, right?
Yeah, uh, Ephesus. Yeah,
Ephesus.
I there's so many sites there. And then like you were talking about Darren Kuyu, which is uh, it's a cave city. I mean,
Yeah,
people
that's
have
it.
seen Ancient Aliens; they've probably seen all about it. But I mean, that we don't even really know how old that is. But there was clearly a time when we needed to live underground, or someone needed to live underground. I think,
That's what's freaky about it, though, Luke. That it's like little people, and then in some of the areas, it's like giant Nephilim, like openings. The ceilings are 12 foot high. The steps are,
and
you know,
I think some of it may well be sound related. I haven't been there. I really wanted to go. I only had one full day in Turkey just to see Göbekli Tepe at the end of 2018, because I just after the Egypt tour I slammed through Göbekli Tepe and then Petra and then Baalbek just as
oh,
like
you've
a
been to Petra?
yeah, yeah, just an add-on. And we literally had one day in each of those places, but I'm like, I don't know when I'm gonna have the time and whatnot. So I went, but it was incredibly cold. Like the visibility in Turkey was almost nil that day. It was like driving sleet and mist. So it was like really gray. All my pictures looked black and white. I actually had to sort of colorize them so people would recognize it was Göbekli Tepe. But it's an amazing site. It's just almost everything is covered, and I don't know that site. When we went November, it's even worse now because it's about 12 miles, I think, from the Syrian border. Like that town Idlib that they're bombing the fuck out of and killing people left, and they've been doing it for years too. That's right across the border on the other side from Göbekli Tepe. So it's not a real good time to be an American
Oh, I
down there.
gotcha.
And the State Department, when we went November 18, had a level 4 warning, which was don't go. You can go to like Istanbul, but don't go anywhere else. If you go anywhere else, especially down south, like we have no staff there and we're not going to come and get you. And that's what it said on the State Department website. And I was like, well, I just looked at it. I'm like, I don't see this getting any better, like in the near future. So I'm going to go look at Göbekli Tepe now and get the fuck out. But I had these canopic jars in my bag from Egypt that were covered in verdigris. When copper oxidizes, again, we're talking about that, and it turns green.
Mm-hmm.
And these, like, you can do that. Like, you can make copper do that very quickly. It's not really hard, but
Yeah.
it makes something look really old.
Yeah.
And so I bought these 4 canopic jars because they look old and they're cool from a tiny little back alley vendor in Egypt. And he was telling me the
Probably
story about
stolen,
how
right?
no, he was telling me like his grandfather made these 80 years ago or something. And I'm like, yeah, I know you made these like 80 months ago, but like, I mean,
Yeah.
whatever, $18, take my money. And it was really the only thing I bought in Egypt. And so I had those in my bag. And then I got to Turkey, and we arrived in Turkey. There were 4 of us at that time. And there was a problem. Like we got off there. Sanliurfa is a really chintzy little airport, and so we went into the baggage room, and our bags weren't there. And then they finally were like, you have to come and get your bags. But I'd gone to the bathroom, so I came back, and one of our crew was there with everybody's hand luggage, and everybody else had gone to get the bags. So I'm like, I'll wait with the hand luggage, you go get the bags. And so then they came. Then I was chased out of that room. They were like, you can't be here anymore. And I'm like, well, what about all these bags? So I had to go find a cart, and they let me put them on a cart and take them out of there. And then they came there like, no, they don't want everybody else, they want you. And I'm like, okay. And there's another weird story about that I was told in Egypt about me being on a list and all these problems I was going to have, which I didn't believe. But anyway, so I got into this back room, and then they're like, open this bag. And I'm like, okay. And I go through, and they're like, what's in this? And I'm like, oh, it's the canopic jars. So I'm not really expecting an issue. I just open them. I'm like, and they don't. One guy spoke marginal English. Nobody else did, and I don't speak any Turkish at all. And my SIM card wasn't working there. And anyway, they wanted to know about these canopic jars, and I'm trying to tell them that like these aren't old. They look old, but they're not really old. But he didn't believe me, so he gets on the phone with some guy at the archaeological museum who wants to see photographs. So now we got to photograph these fucking things and send pictures to the guy. And after about an hour, they were like, "Okay, you can go and take your things." And I should have gotten something in writing, but I didn't. Anyway, we went to Göbekli Tepe, we went to the museum, we did all this stuff, and I was thinking maybe I should just stop at a post office and mail these so I don't have any more issues. But I didn't. And that morning, we were running a little late, and the taxi was small, and so I got in a second taxi. The other guys were like 5 minutes ahead of me, and then my taxi couldn't get out of third gear. The back window didn't work. It was really cold. We were doing like 30 miles an hour. I'm like, oh my God. So we got to the airport. I was really pretty late by this point. And it, like most of the airports in that region, they do a bag check. Like as soon as like you go in through the main doors and there's the x-ray machines. It's the same thing in Lebanon. It's the same thing in Egypt. They do it same thing in a lot of places. So I get in there, my bags go through. Immediately there's like fucking, flaxen, awooga, alarms and shit. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So, and like the guys come over and they're like, they're looking at the stuff and they're like hand grenade. They think it's like, they look like hand grenades. And I'm like, sweet God, like, here we go. I'm like, they're canopic jars. And so we take them out and we're looking at them, and then nobody speaks English. And, anyway, so I'm trying with like this one guy had a phone that he was willing to try to one of the policemen, because they switched me over immediately from the security guys to the local policemen who have an office right there. And one of them he just kept shoving this phone in my face that said, "Where is the taste? Where is the taste?" And I'm like, sir, I wish I could answer this question for you, but I don't know what you're talking about. And I'm saying, look, this isn't old. I explained all this to the guy when I came in the country. If you just find somebody from like the other office, we can like, and nobody speaks English. There's no effort made to find anybody at this point. Then they find like a jar of those travel sweets that have like the white sugar in them. And the one guy opens it and spills like the white powdered sugar and then puts it.
Oh God, it's not looking
good. And then like 2 minutes later, another guy comes over and finds the powdered sugar, and he's like throwing his hands up in the air like, holy shit, cocaine or whatever the fuck, which I've never done in my life. Anyway, so then they get out and I'm like, it's fucking sugar. Like, and I'm like,
you're tasting it. It's like, this guy's a fucking crackhead.
So they did actually, one of them was like, oh yeah, no, this is sugar. Like he had obviously done some cocaine because he knew. And, and anyway, they're like ripping my bags apart. Now everything that's, from anywhere, they took, a thing I bought at the gift shop at Göbekli Tepe, and the magnets, and something Yusuf's wife had given me, which is clearly like a new statue of Ptah that she had given me in Egypt, and a few other things. And they've got them all in this back office where I'm taken to, and still nobody speaks English. And they're filling out forms and taking pictures of everything. And I'm told to sit in this chair. And they've got a guy sitting in front of a window, like obviously bulletproof because it's about 2 inches thick. And inside that window is a tiny window with a latch on it. And every once in a while, somebody comes and knocks on that window, and he opens it, and this handgun gets passed in. And he takes the handgun, he takes the magazine out, and he takes all the bullets out of the magazine, and he puts them in a little plastic baggie with the magazine and puts it next to it. And the whole time this guy does this, every time he does this, he holds eye contact with me. He's not looking at the gun. He's not looking at the bullets. He's not looking at the fucking bag. He's just staring at me, like taking the bullets out of the gun. Like, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm totally relaxed because I know I've done nothing wrong. I know this shit is new. I know like I haven't violated any crimes. I'm just totally relaxed. So this other guy comes in and starts asking me questions, and I can't answer them because I don't speak Turkish. And so he leaves, and I'm sitting there. I got my legs crossed. I'm just sitting there, like I think I might even have my eyes closed. This guy comes in. He goes ape shit, and he shoves me like really hard, so that I come off the chair. I manage to keep my balance. And he shoves me a couple more times, and he's screaming like in my face. And I'm like, I don't speak Turkish. And he stops and he goes, "Oh, how are you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm great. I'm really great. How are you?" And then he disappeared. And so I'm sitting in there, an hour and a half, and just, guys still filling out forms and taking pictures of all this stuff. And finally, one of the people that I was traveling with was like, where the hell is Luke? And she had a SIM card that worked. We did a thing where like I did Lebanon and someone did Turkey and someone did Jordan. Actually, we all did Jordan because they were super cheap. But anyway, um, so she found me. She came in. She has like Apple Translate on her fucking iPhone, which is like the only good thing I think about iPhones is that translation program is better than Google Translate. And she came in. She's from New Zealand, and so she came in, and I think like the Turks and the New Zealand, the Kiwis have this thing. I think it's about Anzac, like in the Second World War, where like the Kiwis came and helped the Turks, fight the Italians, and a lot of them died on the beaches, and the Turks still remember that shit. And she came in and she's like, "Oh, I'm from New Zealand," and that's kind of Australian, but anyway. And she came in with her phone, and they're like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm with him, and our other friends are outside." And they're like, "You're with people?" They had no idea. And what it turned out was after we had the translation program and we were able to tell them that I brought this into the country and there was like documentation of it. And we walked over there and we, got on the phone to somebody else and they came back. And then the one guy, he was angry about it, but he was like, "Pack up your shit and get the fuck out of here." And I'm like, "Okay."
That's it?
So
Really? All that
yes,
bullshit for that?
yeah. So, well, that's not really where it ends because we had
Oh,
to
there's
catch
more.
a flight from there to Ankara. So we flew to Ankara where we were catching a flight to Jordan. And when we got to Ankara, I was like, "I'm not doing this again. I am like, there's always a post office in an airport. I'm like, I'm mailing all this shit right now." So I took the canopic jars, the statue of Ptah that Patricia had given me, even the magnets and the little replica T-shaped thing and this little like I don't know fucking llama looking thing with no legs that I bought at the Göbekli Tepe souvenir shop. In an effort, I figured I'll put this in with the canopic jars so they understand this is just tourist shit. So and that didn't work. Anyway, so I found the post office. I opened my bags. I got all like my fucking dirty clothes and underwear I wasn't gonna wear again until I got home, and I wrapped this stuff in it, sealed it in plastic, put it inside the DHL box. The guy taped it all up, paid him 70 euros or whatever it was to send that shit home, and then went and tried to get on a plane to Jordan. So we got down to the counter. They're like, "No, you haven't paid for your flights." And now I booked this with two of my friends. Two of the three friends I was traveling with, I booked the hotel rooms, my friend booked the flights, and then we all evened it out later. So I'm like, "Marie," and she's like, "No, I paid for it. I got the receipt here, like from the travel agency, and I got it like all here, all the receipts." And they're like, "No, you haven't paid for it." So then we called the travel agency. So we got the travel agency on the phone, and travel agency are like, "Yep, we've got everything there." And they wouldn't talk to the travel agency. So I'm like, is the flight full? And they're like, "No." And I'm like, "Great. Here's my credit card. Put the three of us on this flight. And then you and the travel agency, one of you guys is getting a bill. And like, we'll sort it out. Like either I'll, through my credit card company or whatever." And they're like, "Okay." So then we're waiting, and like the plane is getting closer to takeoff, and we haven't even checked in. We're still waiting for our tickets and everything. And we're like, "What's going on?" They're like, "Well, we're waiting for you to get permission to get on the plane." And I'm like, "What? Like in what reality do I need a permission to buy a ticket to get on a plane? Like, don't people just buy tickets here and get on airplanes? Like, what the fuck's going on?" They wouldn't answer us. So finally, they were like, "Okay, go and get on the plane." But they wouldn't. They claimed we hadn't paid, but they wouldn't let us buy new ones. So we go down to the other ticket, off the check-in booth, and they're like, "No, you haven't paid." And I'm like, "Look, you people need to sort this out. Like, I don't know what the fucking problem is, but they're saying yes, you're saying no. Somebody do something because the plane's going to take off." So they called the other, and they're like, "Okay, go get on the plane." So we got on the fucking plane, and we got the fuck out of Turkey. And I had to fly back through Turkey, which was a real bummer. But when I got back to the States, about 3 days after I got back to the States, that package arrived. But it wasn't a package. There were like two strips of cardboard inside like another plastic bag, and the remnants of everything that I had put in. They X-rayed everything with a fucking hammer. They smashed every object
Damn.
that was in there. I had these. There's one other thing I bought for my mom from Egypt. They smashed that. They smashed the head off of the statue of Ptah. They broke the magnets. They broke the little T-pillar facsimile. And they tried to break the canopic jars, but the metal was too, so they just dented them. But like, I couldn't they vindictively went out of their way to smash everything that was in
Yeah.
that box. It's just
And
like,
then they mailed you the pieces. That's
and then they
fucked up.
mailed me the pieces. Like, here's your fucking stuff, and don't come back.
Here are your cocaine jars, bro.
And so that was like that. And I know a couple of people who've had since then. I've talked to a couple of people who've had a similar experience, and they're like, "You're really lucky your friends were there because they were about to levy you with the big bribe, and it was going to come down to, this is a very big problem." They knew. They made no effort to speak English. They knew none of those things were old, but they were going to. Well, you can spend some time here in jail and get a lawyer and sort all that shit out, or you can make a donation,
Wow,
and
what dicks.
be on your way. And so I would very much recommend, like, I go everywhere by myself generally. Sometimes I go with friends, but I've never been afraid to go somewhere by myself. But I would recommend bringing a friend to Turkey. And like, it's an amazing, cultural wonderland once you get into the ruins and stuff there. And I'd love to go and do. But I think I'll be going with a few people.
Yeah, from New Zealand.
Yeah, maybe from New Zealand.
That's
Take your
crazy. Are there any ancient sites in Australia?
I think there are. I think there's a lot. They're discovering that the Aboriginals are very old, much older than had been supposed by our science anyway. Because I think they've always sort of thought of themselves as the original people. But there are, of course, the Gosford glyphs that some people say are hoaxes. But there are, ancient sites there that are, maybe Neolithic and older. The sacred Aboriginal sites. But I don't know of any pyramids. There is a strange. There's one building was part of a church for a while that looks kind of megalithic. I forget the name of it.
Yeah, I'm looking right now. There doesn't really seem to be that many.
There's a couple things in New Zealand that look pretty interesting. There's a wall in New Zealand out in the forest that looks pretty megalithic.
Well, it's like what we were talking about, the Bosnian pyramids, or quote unquote pyramids.
Yeah.
It's like there's these weird structures. We were talking about Antarctica. These weird structures in Antarctica that resemble pyramids, but they say they're mountains, right? But at the same time, it's like all the continents were jumbled up together at one point.
I mean, it's it's under ice and snow, so a lot of it, who knows? But a lot of those things that they say are pyramids, if you look at them, they're like three-sided pyramids, which would be very unusual. I mean, all of our pyramids that we built are four-sided.
Well, that's the thing. I think the Antarctic ones, Antarctica pyramids. I think they're actually 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, they're four-sided.
Yeah, I don't know if those are natural or not. I mean, I tend to suspect they are, but who knows? Maybe some of them are, and some of them aren't. And I think that there's a lot of stuff to discover there. And actually, it seems like I saw something recently that there's actually been. They were saying for a long time that there hadn't been a significant ice melt there, despite global warming. But I saw something very recently which showed a pretty significant ice melt.
I saw it as well.
And a lot of now actually liquid water. It might be possible to go and take a look at some of that stuff. I mean, if it were allowed.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It's very restricted, and
well, that's what the flat earthers say, right? That's the edge of the world, but there's a lot more beyond that. Once you get over the barrier, that's where Atlantis, or I don't know, whatever else is. I don't.
Yeah, it's the ice wall.
Right.
But again, stuff that I can't prove. I've never been there.
Nope.
I've never been to outer space.
And that's a tough one. You pretty much have to have your own boat, because any sightseeing Antarctic tour is not going to go anywhere near any of the places you're not allowed to go.
You've never been there, right?
No. There's a lot of places I haven't been. I've been to a lot of places, but there's so many places that even though like I read about this stuff and I look at this stuff and I research it all the time and I talk to other people, I still like a couple times a month. I'm like, where is that?
Oh yeah. I know, that's why every time I hear about a new place, I'll like text you and be like, "Hey, have you do anything about this place?"
And some I do, and some I don't.
Because I love that, all these crazy sites. Because it's not just uh Egypt, but it's like that Varankuyu place. It's just tunnels, these
Mm.
weird tunnels, and just like in Egypt,
Hey, and
the
there's miles.
catacombs.
I'm doing this video now on the step pyramid of Zoser, and it's like 7 kilometers of tunnels underneath that thing that we know about. They're still discovering them. When I was
Seven
there,
what? Kilometers?
7 levels. Sorry,
Oh,
there's 6 levels that we know about, but 7 kilometers of tunnels underneath that pyramid.
is that
And
the one that you told me where the guy was like, "No, you're
yes,
still on level 2," and it's like, "No, I was on level 4," or something like that. Some
yeah,
weird thing going on.
yeah, that's the one where I was told a story about the green statues of followers of Thoth from across the sea. That they're
Oh
down
yeah.
there on the supposed 8th level. And who knows? There was a lot of stuff under there that I certainly didn't get to see. They were really cool though, and they let us go down into the 5th level where they had some incredible boxes with high tech machine tool marks on them, and then there was a tunnel you crawl into, and it led to a hole that with a rope dangling down, 20 feet or so into the sixth level that they had just discovered a few months beforehand.
Yeah, that's
And there's a lot of the tunnels I saw in there are only partially excavated. I mean, they'll be under there forever. And that whole area in Saqqara is riddled. And the same with the Giza Plateau, and possibly all the way down the old Nile path where all the pyramids are in that sort of line down the old Nile. But it's possible you might be able to get all the way from Abu Rawash in the north, down to somewhere, maybe Maidum even. That because
it's
that
a
was that was one large city at some point, all the way from Abu Ruwash in the north, all the way down to Maidum was one large city complex. It's so massive, it staggers the mind, and yet they had that set up even before the Third Dynasty. They apparently had a system of quarries set up to not just everywhere within Egypt where you would get these different types of stone, but also Sudan and Nubia and even Lebanon. Like, how are you establishing a quarry system? They don't even have that now in Egypt. How are they establishing a quarry system centuries before they even had the ability to quarry those types of stone? The whole thing is preposterous. Like, our history is just wrong. It's
Yeah, and they don't want to admit it
I
that they're
get
wrong.
I get so worked up.
Yeah, they don't want
Uh,
to admit it. That's what, again, why the we talked about this, the hostility against all that,
yeah.
and the dogma and stuff. But
I mean, I understand, like, at some point it's just frustrating for them. They feel like they've had the same discussion. They feel like maybe they even feel like they've lost the same argument 100 times. But, that one of the things that comes up all the time is the Sphinx, was it a lion or was it a jackal? And, I think there's uh, several really good reasons, apart from my phone, to
does it
decide
matter?
that was a lion. Hey, it might matter, but no. I mean, I think the only part of that argument that really matters is that obviously the head wasn't human. It's been redone at a later time. So, but to me that's a lion, and there are early statues of the lion with Fourth Dynasty writings.
Wait, so the face isn't of a human; it's an animal?
The face is now a human, but it was redone probably in the Fourth Dynasty. If you look at the size of the head, it's way too small for the rest of the body. There's no
Yeah, it
way.
looks odd. It looks
Yeah, there's
odd.
there's no way, and it's had a lot of damage in the past too, and so probably at some point half of the face just fell off, and you've got like this semi-headless statue, and then somebody was like, I'm gonna make it look like the pharaoh or some. That's the story, and then it ended up with a face that looked like a Fourth Dynasty face with the headdress, supposedly.
Yeah,
But
these
yeah,
people are trolls. I named that other episode "The Egyptians, the Trolls of the Ancient World" or something like that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because they're just trolling everybody,
They
man. Like,
a lot of those explanations they give for stuff. That's what I was saying. I think it is, I think they were, yeah, go back to Greece, do it this way. I remember my great uncle was in the British Navy in the World War II, and he was actually in convoy PQ-17, which was like, I don't know, I can't even remember how many ships, but all but three of them were sunk by the U-boats. And his ship they painted their ship white, and they hid in the ice floes. They were taking munitions to Russia, and they were one of three ships to survive. But I remember him telling me a story of, I think back before the Second World War, maybe it was after, I don't know, that the Japanese, it must have been before the Second World War, the Japanese had contracted the British Admiralty to provide them with plans for battleships. And so they would send out plans for battleships or destroyers or whatever it was. And the Japanese would go, yeah, don't really like this one. And they'd send it back, and then they'd go ahead and fucking build it anyway. And so the Brits caught on that they were doing this. So they started sending them like top heavy designs. And I don't know if that story is true, but that to me is almost what I could see the ancient Egyptians doing. Yeah, this is how we did that. And then they try to carve something in the stone with that, and they're like, fuck, how did they do this? I can't do it. And then you feel inferior. You feel like an idiot.
Yeah. We talk about the Olmec heads because you were telling me some
But maybe also the Egyptians didn't know any more themselves
because they adopted everything.
Yeah. So yeah, the Olmec heads.
Yeah, the ones in Mexico, you were telling me some stuff about that, which is, these things are weird, man.
They are weird, and that's I think what I was saying is that the Olmecs, that's what we call them, because we have no idea what they called themselves. That's not that uncommon with, I guess, with those really ancient cultures, but we know literally nothing about them. So some of the ancient stuff just sort of gets given to them because maybe they were around, but really nobody knows. I mean, you look at Teotihuacan, they've done some, I think, insufficient testing on some of the stone there, and because obviously that's over generations, that's rebuilt and new layers, and as they repair and take stuff, they're like, oh my god, look at all these carvings. See, look at the heads of Quetzalcoatl and stuff. That none of that stuff, like at Chichen Itza, was apparent until they renovated it, because it had been buried under later renovations, by the Mayans, by the Aztecs, in that case, themselves. So like even the Aztecs didn't know who built Teotihuacan. The way that pyramid is built, there were really really large, fine layers of mica, built into, the levels of that pyramid. Like, why would you do that? I mean, we use mica today. It's kind of valuable, and, we use it in electronic and insulation and what have you. Why were they putting an entire layer of this, over their pyramid? It's crazy.
They knew some stuff.
They knew some stuff, and nobody knows who built those. And those are around for a long time, whether it was the Olmec or whoever. It's just another thing I think is older than we think it is.
Aren't those the ones in that movie, the Atlantis movie, the Disney movie?
I didn't see it.
We didn't see it. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, that's another ancient site that's crazy. But yeah,
but I find it's weird how this stuff creeps into pop culture. And I mean, it's everything from, like, if you see Star Wars and they've got, like, at the end, like the rebel spaceships are coming out from the bottom of pyramids in the Yucatan. I mean, that's where all that stuff, they filmed all that stuff. And I've noticed in a lot of Star Wars movies, there's like somebody is making sure to put like megalithic old interlocking stuff in the background of some of these ancient sites on various planets, and I always had a little chuckle about that stuff.
Well, that's the thing about these, if you want to call them the reptilians, they know, and they just put it in our faces and they laugh at us because they probably know a lot more than they're telling us, and they do it on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know. There was a time, like in the 90s, when all that sort of Roswell stuff was blowing up again, and the guy came out who used to work at S4, Bob Lazar, and he did those TV and radio interviews back in the day, and that really kind of stoked my interest again in so I was kind of interested in that stuff. But I've seen some of the YouTube documentaries and stuff, but I've never really spent a lot of time diving into the reptilian thing or the blue bird. Like I've got some friends who really like Gaia, and they like that Corey. What's Corey Good? I think his name is, and he talks about our real space program, and the blue avians who are helping us, and other I don't know. And like I just kept falling asleep. Like I tried, and then so I like roped a couple friends in, come over, let's watch this together. And I couldn't like I couldn't get through. Like I think I made it like 4.5 episodes into the first season, and my other friends were like, "No, you've got to get to season 1." I'm like, I'm done.
Well, so what's your take on extraterrestrials?
I think mathematically they exist, and I think they've probably been here, and I think I said this, they probably this place is probably like alien Disneyland or alien Vegas. Like I'm sure they come here and they've got pretty good skin suits and they get fucked up, and they or maybe they really are evolved and they're just taking notes. Possibly
Mark Zuckerberg is an alien.
he's a weird looking guy. I don't know. Possibly. Who knows? I mean, They Live is a great movie. I love that movie. It's been one of my favorite. I've got a soft spot for John Carpenter, like in the late 70s, early 80s. He made like 4 or 5 great movies, and They Live, although the ending's not great, but They Live is a fabulous movie, and I could kind of see something like that happen. I choose not to believe, or I choose not to live in a world where I believe in that until I see some real proof of it, because that's going to take you to a really dark place if you're going to believe that there are these reptilian overlords who are just fucking us on every level imaginable, and there's nothing we can do about it, and there are overlords. Like if I'm going to live in that reality, I need to fucking see it. And that's really how it's not necessarily that I don't believe it could be true. It's just that like I really need to see all of that. I mean, and people will look at the world and look at what's going on in Yemen and see, and yeah, it's fucked up. But I think we're aggressive, angry, nasty little monkeys, and that's what we do. And that's, I think, really, hopefully, extraterrestrials are sitting there thinking, man, they're getting closer to figuring it out. What can we do to like nudge them along if they're allowed to do that? Because we're a dead end if we're going to continually harvest to the point of hoarding and destroying, and if we're continually going to fight over sharing. If we can't conquer our base instincts, we're fucked. And maybe that's the problem with this experiment, is that there's too much animal and not enough spirit.
Yeah.
Maybe the body needs to be lighter. And I mean that in like an energetic sense, not in a weight sense. I don't know. The vessel is flawed. The vessel is clearly flawed. But maybe, obviously that's part of the deal here. The vessel is flawed. So, I don't, there's too many questions there. I'm not smart. I don't think humans are smart. And I don't think we're meant to understand.
Well, it's like that quote by Albert Einstein, you can't paraphrase, you can't figure out something from the same consciousness that it was created by.
Well,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you said that last time, and I think I said last time where our science is always going to fail because we're in the petri dish. You can't study something from inside the petri dish.
Well, I always think to myself, the more I look into all this stuff, it's like, what if there isn't anything else? And this is it, and there's no spirituality, there's no religion, and there's nothing after we die. It's just,
well, I think there is spirituality regardless of whether there's anything else.
Well, but you can't really speak
on
that.
My answer to that.
You can't really speak on that, Luke, because
my answer to that, though, really, Juan, it's to your what if there's nothing else, how blessed is that? How beautiful is that? Really, like
there's nothing else.
When you go to sleep and you don't dream or you don't remember your dreams, is it terrible? When you don't know that you are, how is it? Does it hurt?
No.
Is it stressful?
No.
It's okay. It's safe to die. Everything is safe. It's all safe. It's all part of the procedure. Whether there's something else or not, it's safe. This is how it is. So if there's nothing else, enjoy your time here. Help others enjoy their time here.
Yeah.
Don't be an
Yeah.
asshole. I mean, it's still fun and necessary to be an asshole sometimes. But,
Yeah.
don't be a Cheney.
I yeah, I believe in karma and stuff. Like today I helped somebody out. I gave them a jump start. Nobody was helping her out, and I gave
That's
her a jump
huge. You
start.
know how much like that helped her day? And she probably did something else. I was at a gas station the other day and I was getting gas, and this woman putting, nice looking SUV, older woman, looking quite tired, and she looked terrible. And I asked her how she was doing, and she's like, "I'm coming back from my chemo treatments, and I left my fucking ATM card at home, and I'm out of gas." She didn't ask me for it. I gave her $10 for gas. And you know what? I don't care if it's a story. I don't care if she had, if she didn't leave her ATM card at home. If someone asked me for help, it's not like money is like the smallest help.
Yeah, because that obviously can't buy happiness. You got all these
But
people who have everything and they
but like
still
it,
kill themselves.
if she was, I ran the same thing in Thailand. A guy who didn't have money, was standing outside a clinic and was ill and didn't have money for a bus ride home. If people ask me for water, I will always give them water. Like depending on who they are and what they look like, I might not buy them food, but I will always give people water. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know what we're talking about anymore. But
About how I said, well, there's nothing else, and
yeah.
and because I just think about it, dude. Like,
I think there so is everything else. I think it's not just. This is what I realized in my very first, NN-DMT experience, was that it's not just we're in a box, and there's a lot of interesting stuff in this box, but outside of this box is not something else. It's everything else. Everything else is out there. It's all there, and I think it's all mysterious and amazing. And
yeah, that's the thing. You've done all these psychedelics and you've seen some crazy shit. Well, there you have it. That was Luke Williamson. This is actually a recording that was like 3.5 hours, 4 hours long, and I broke it up in 2 separate episodes. Check out next week. It's a different episode by itself, but it's actually the second part of this conversation. Make sure to check that out. Make sure to check out Luke's work on YouTube. Make sure to follow us on social media at the Juan on Juan Podcast. Shoot me an email if you want to be on the show or if you want us to cover anything. The Juan on Juan Podcast at gmail.com. And as always, thank you for the support. I appreciate the good criticism, bad criticism, whatever criticism. And until next time.